We're going to talk about a little something that I know is really important for a lot of people, which is anxiety disorders, and what are these triggers? We're going to discuss a lot about the approach to anxiety, breaking down what it is, what is actually happening on the physical plane, as well as the mental plane, and also the causal plane. And a lot of the approaches that I have as far as Max Wellness, it's really always been a basis of balancing the bodies. Realizing these three aspects, this is how we approach every disorder, dis-ease, any imbalance, anything that you feel is taking you from your highest vibration or preventing you from tapping into access that you always have access to, this abundance of whatever it may be. We look at it on all different levels so that we can approach it and speak those languages better. In this case of anxiety, right? There's a lot of common events and issues that are really triggering in a way. I don't like using that word triggering, but let's say stimulating to the central nervous system, which is represented as anxiety. Some of these things can be like a loss, either a death, financial security, a relationship, things of these natures where we feel like there's a lack of on the physical plane. So most of the time your biological body will have an effect because of something in your environment, which is all in the physical plane. This is what we're speaking in now, just the physical. I'll let you know we jump bodies. On that physical plane, when somebody or something is taken out of your physical environment, you have a biological effect. Your biological body feels this sadness. It wants to cry. It wants to shut down. It wants to run. It wants to scream, fight, all these different things, these reactions, these sensations come up in the biological body, and that gets stored in the energy. The energy is the third level of that physical body before you get to the subtle body. You're not there yet. So in the energy, this is stored up in what we would call meridians in the physical body. Can talk about the chakras, the nadis, a bunch of different things that your body, biological body, is a representation of, and this is where it stores it. So now jumping into the mental body, which is really the mental here, as well as your intellect, how we intellectualize things, and also into our vital body, which is our chi, our sexual energy, our ka, our prana, things like that, that are moving within us, the vital airs. Now when anxiety pops up in that way, the body is processing on a physical plane all these things, and it sends that message up. Now on that subtle level where that energy is being stored, that's what the mental, the intellect, all of that starts getting this information going. Oh my gosh, I can't wrap my head around this. I can't intellectualize this. My breathing is stopping. Why are the lungs contracting so much? Why am I breathing so heavy? All this crying. And it starts to go into that fight or flight state. Now with that, now the memory and the intellect is storing that experience as being this, as being in that fight or flight mode. That loss is connected to that. Now, what that does is it sends it into the higher realm, which is in your higher self. So now you say, I lost this person, I lost this job, I lost this relationship, I lost this basketball game, whatever it may be, and you have this emotional and visceral effect from it. It's really overwhelming to the individuals. Me as an individual, oh, this is purposely happening to me. I consistently lose people, I consistently lose jobs, I can't keep this, and then that's where the blame, the shame, all these different things comes in. And the second part of that causal body is the collective, and that third is going to be the universal. On the collective level, we start to compare ourselves to the people around us, people that have lost other people around us, people that have maybe maintained jobs, and we start to compare ourselves. And this is where you get separation. And this gives you the ego, the shadow, all these different things that we need to work through on that causal level. And then when we look at it on a universal level, the universe just wants our highest, greatest good. That anxiety is not really registered into that way, or when it does get that, There's no separateness, there's no right, there's no wrong, there's no good, bad. So when it takes that, it goes, we need to experience this again so that we can transmute this negative energy that's coming this way and neutralize it. Now you experience it again, and your physical body has to go through it again. A lot of times, what we can do to regulate these things is breathing practices to get into that mental and that mental body and that subtle energy. Also, on a physical level, how are we processing these things? Sometimes, yes, you do need to cry. You do need to focus on your body and say, where am I trembling? Why am I freezing? Why do I not know what to do? Why am I lashing out? Why am I reacting? It's that speaking to yourself in that way. And on your individual level, it's really about not holding yourself personally accountable for that anxiety. There's nothing wrong with it, there's nothing bad about it. And that's where we can put these practices into place on these three different levels to help maintain homeostasis and a balance of those sensations and those rushes of things that come in when we're experiencing something such as loss. Now, a couple other things, we won't go fully in depth into them, but the same things happen with insecurity, anger, and other negative emotions like hurt, grief, stressors, anything that you feel is bringing you out of your state of homeostasis, where you're at a balance and you're at a stillness and you're actually doing well. Not just okay, but doing well. And it shifts you into that illness. But another way, just to kind of touch into, is the physical body. In your biological body, what happens is it has this overwhelming sensation, this overflowing of emotional stimulants. So you have all these emotions that flood into your body at the same time. Now, when we don't have a clear emotional intelligence about compartmentalizing and identifying these different emotions in our body and our brain says, oh, this is this, this is this, this is this, and the processing is not functioning in that way, the central nervous system shorts out. So you either freeze up, you go out and fight, you react, you frazzle, you make a shitty decision, whatever it may be. Your communication with your central nervous system is primary, because this is what's happening on this physical level, and this is your first line of defense. So one major thing I always tell people in my K.E.E.S coaching, which is the kinesthetic embodiment of energetic and somatics, this coaching really forms and helps you structure a clear line of sight, first of all, by identifying emotional stimulants and emotional processing to heighten your emotional intelligence. Really bridging that gap from that physical body to that mental body, where that subtle energy is, where that intellect is, and that emotion is in the physical body. You can bridge that gap. So now when that information and all that stuff and all that stressors and the loss and the insecurities and all these things come in, it can be communicated, and it has like a funnel that goes in to that subtle energy, nice and smooth and clear, so that the mind and the body are on a balance and a level. And now what goes further than that, you bridge a gap from that subtle energy into that causal energy. And that's where you dissolve that sense of blame and shame, and you bring these things in and you're able to neutralize it. This really just gives you a level of ushering out that emotional stimulant, the emotional stressors, the emotional overflow, and allows it to balance all the way through those bodies. On the K.E.E.S coaching, that is one of the first steps that we do with the emotional identification. Then after that, what we do is we go into dissolving it. What is the pattern that is happening? Why does this keep coming around? And how can we notice it, see it, become aware of it, and then change it? Because that's what it's really all about. We don't want anxiety as a disorder to throw our lives all over the place. We want to gain command of this command center. You can't just have something in there and all these emotions and all these things happening in your environment and happening in your mind, and just things pressing the buttons all haphazardly. What we all want is a peace, a sense of knowing, not just belief, but knowing that our communication with all of our systems on every different level are working and communicating healthily, kindly, and most of all, effectively. If you're interested in unlocking anxiety and bridging the gap between some of these bodies, feel free to hit the link, give me a call, and we can set up a consultation to see what's best for you.